Morning, everyone. Let's start the meeting here. First item, is anyone here for public comment? I know you guys aren't public, but you can comment anytime. You're bright and early. Okay, we'll go on to the minutes from August 25th. Move, Sharon, minutes. Motion by McBride. Second. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Minutes from August 26th. Okay, we'll move on then. Where are we at? Financial statement? Yeah.
Chair, would you like to do the airport bill first?
Whatever you would like.
Chair, I would move page 1, page at the back side, airport bill, $42,553.57. I move those to be paid.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
And a second by the Brian. Any discussion?
Just a question on the no-foam systems. Or 24,000 is
Installed and operated.
okay. And you guys were testing the fire protection?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I don't want to get too far in the name of time, but so this is a sidebar story. They sent $24,000 apparatus in a plastic 5-gallon drum shipping container. And what happened was that UPS had went through, I think, 8 checkpoints from California, National Falls, and somewhere along the line they lost the barrel, but they blew the rest of the lid. So we signed it. We had the lid in possession, and then we did the tracking, and it's still out there somewhere. They haven't found it yet. So anyway, looking here in California, it comes up to $24,000.
You couldn't even make that up. It's unbelievable.
So I walked into the office of it said expedite shipping at Falls Airport, 98 pounds. 94 or something.
So we paid for it.
We did.
We don't have it in possession though.
They sent it that. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me. They did send it on one.
They did send it, yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Chair, along with that motion, secondly, would mind page 3, there's additional bills of $19,371.87. I'd like to add to that motion.
Any questions, comments? All right. Call a question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, then we're on.
We got one.
Yeah,
Phase 2.
And second page, runway construction project phase 2. $2,922,486.87.
That's hard.
That's higher than
There's a correction to that. The total amount should be $3,177,028.75.
A little bit more.
I printed everything before I.
Yep.
Hard to even say that. It's a lot of money. Oh.
So I would move with that correction.
All right, thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
I'll say.
We got a motion and a second. Pay that small amount of bills. All right, any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're poorer.
We're getting closer now. And the last one on the back of page 2, airport reconstruction project phase 3, Wagner Construction, $242,506.98, and that one is correct, right? It has to be paid to Wagner Construction.
Okay, we got a motion
Support.
and a second on the bill for Wagner. What was their project? What were they doing?
Weathers and
Weather.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right. Okay, any questions or comments?
Again, Mr. Chair, those are all part of this project, part of the funding. I think they're at, what, 98%, 97.5%, so 95 minimum, right?
All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Fred. Okay, engineers report. Well, you guys are here bright and early today. Good morning. Make yourself at home and enlighten us. We need it.
Is Bob on the call right now?
Yes, I'm here.
You must be incognito there or something.
Well, we're going to do the terminal update.
Bob, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay. I did send it's the same memo as last month. And I did send that very late this morning to Kyra, so I don't know, Kyra, did you get a chance to print that off for everybody?
Yes, it is.
We got it.
We got it.
Very good, thank you. Well, then I'll just turn it over to Steve Trudeau, who's also on the line, to go through the outstanding items.
Yes, I am. Good morning, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, good morning.
Yes, Steve, good morning.
Thank you. Bob, I don't have a copy of your memo, but I've got the one from last month, so I'll just kind of go through the items that I'm aware of anyways on terminal construction updates. We'll start with the southeast light monitor ongoing leaking that had been going on. Again, we believe that is all taken care of now. I've not had any further leaks after reconstructing that. AW Kettle has put the metal panels back on that monitor, and I believe we're still waiting for Range Cornice Roofing to come back and put the parapet edge coping metal back on that particular monitor. Talked to Terry Marty earlier this week, and he is trying to get that scheduled, so I'll keep you posted when I find out when he can get back there to finish that portion. So that would wrap up the light monitor work, and we'll have to be watchful, make sure we see no further issues with it. Next item on the list, I believe, was the balancing valve heating leak above the vestibule. That should be done, repaired. All bills have been turned over to Kyra, so assume that is a closed issue at this point. FAA review of change orders on Terminal Project Phase 1 should be complete. I think Bob and crew gave that update last month, and Sean, myself, Bob, and Nathan Reed with LHB are working on the Phase 2 change order updates with FAA to get them to a point that they can make a determination on what they can hopefully fund on a percentage basis. So that is ongoing. Generator. We did receive a note late yesterday, last night actually, from John Hansen with HM Craig. We have been waiting for them to get some exhaust repair parts received so they can get back up to International Falls and get the generator repaired and then do a load bank test. Sounds like they do now have the parts in hand. They struggled, I think, to get the right parts. The wrong pieces came previously, but they have what they need now. They're working with their scheduling department to get back up to International Falls and get that taken care of. So we'll follow up with John again today, tomorrow, to see if they can pin down a date to get back up there soon. So we've made progress. We're getting close to getting them back and getting that repair done. Boiler number 2. Good news is we've made some progress with the original boiler manufacturer, Thermal Solutions, and they've agreed to do what they call a front wall replacement of that boiler. So I don't know what that means, other than just that. It sounds like they literally take the front wall off of the boiler and replace it with a new one. that has in their opinion, a better design. You're not unique in so much that they have maybe experienced this issue with other boilers somewhere, in the world. Not a lot. They've had one other boiler that has done this. So they believe changing this out with a better design of the front wall will take care of the issue. So we'll find out, but that work is scheduled for next week, I believe October 6th and October 7th. So we'll keep an eye on that. Thor, they should be sending, I don't know if you've seen anything come yet, but I assume this week or maybe, Monday leading up to that, they would be delivering to you, shipping ahead of time, the new front wall unit. If you can keep an eye out for that, that would be great.
Yes, and I've emailed the team, sharing with them that we'll obviously receive the parts 7 days a week and any time that we have support the repair.
Great. And we've instructed them to check in with yourself first, obviously, and you can get them access up to the boiler room. They get that taken care of. I did connect them with Shannon's Mechanical also, so I think they'll be working in tandem with Shannon's to do this repair so that they have, some additional labor assistance while they're there. That's a good thing.
Fantastic.
So that's the good news on the boiler. Let's hope that this is exactly what the doctor ordered. I asked them, does this make sense? It seems like a lot of effort. Is this a more cost-effective scenario than just putting in a new boiler? Certainly, they believe it is. We'll find out if this works. If not, that's probably the next step, is to replace the boiler. So time will tell.
The weather's getting colder.
And it's starting to frost a few mornings now, isn't it? I think tomorrow morning is going to frost pretty good. Next on the list, security camera that had been repaired, reinstalled by Brothers Fire. I understand that the programming of that hadn't been completed yet when they were up there. I did finally connect with Waylon Yo at Brothers Fire just this morning, so he did get back to me. He said they indeed are working on it. They've been trying to work with the camera manufacturer, Vigilon. For some reason, that particular camera doesn't want to talk to the server. He's been working through Justin Shipley to, see what he can do to access. Not sure if it's a firewall issue, but they are continuing to dig into it. He let me know that himself and another technician, Trey, will be in your area next week. So they want to stop in, take a look, see if there's something more that they can do physically on site by looking at the servers and try to get together, I assume, with Justin Shipley and see what else they can resolve. So let's watch for that next week. I told them to send me a note when they are going to make that happen, and we can let Thor and crew know. Next item would be phase 1, phase 2 roof connection detail. We did have TNT carpenters there last week. We wanted to research further in the customs post waiting area, kind of high on the ceiling, and they needed to open up some of the tongue and groove boarding to take a look and see if they could determine if there was an insulation gap, or was there some heat escaping through that connection, causing some frosting and some ice damming on the roof. As we know, we saw last winter, certainly above the detention rooms, but as a reminder, the detention room areas were taken care of. They did find some insulation gaps above those rooms. They did correct them, but we wanted them to continue a little further, up the roof, if you will, to the high side and open up some of those boards to see if that was consistent or any issues. They opened things up. They found no issues. Everything did look good. So they put it back together, or I'm told, I've not visually seen this, but Thor, let me know if there's boards not back in place. And I think we just have to wait and see. Let's see how it performs this winter. If we continue to see any additional ice damming on the roof, then we know we still have an issue. But I think everybody's feeling is what they did above the detention rooms certainly was most of the problem. I just want to make sure that there wasn't something higher up the roof. So that work is complete. Nothing further to do at this point besides keep an eye on it, and we'll watch it as we start to frost in these mornings and see if we can see a condensation line. And certainly then this winter when the snow and ice are back, if that's systemic or not. Sean, you probably have a better update than I do on the asphalts at the front of the terminal, if you were able to get any adjusted pricing from Int'l Brothers.
Yeah, we worked with Newland right towards the end of the season there, and unfortunately their cleaning crew had to be elsewhere. They weren't able to work it in. There was maybe not airfield that had to be done. There was a higher priority. So they could a taxi lane with damage during hauling. So I think we're continuing to work to try to find pricing. I know Keith comes to the area as well as Newland. Just trying to find that opportunity to get that worked out.
Okay. I think the only remaining item on the list might then be the jet bridge, which I understand Ameribridge did send their electrical crew to International Falls after the lightning storm issue that seemed to knock the power out of that unit. So I think you let me know there was a cable or something that might have been damaged. I don't know if it was due to the lightning strike or not, but they repaired the cable and things are back in working order. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Great. I do have a message into John Borowitz at Ameribridge. He's out of the office, I think, this week, so we'll see if he can follow back up with me next week to understand where they might be at on resolving the rotunda. I guess we'll call it water and ice intrusion, at the connection from the bridge section to the rotunda. They did, as you recall, have some thoughts that they wanted to research further in their engineering group and try to come up with a cover that might prevent that water from coming in that connection point. But I'll follow back up with them and see if we can get that resolved. I did remind them that you're continuing to hold their retention dollars from the original phase 1 project until that is resolved. I believe that amount is $10,949.58. So I'll find out from them what they can do, hopefully yet this fall, get up there and give it a try. And I think that's my update.
Someone must have put a curse on that jet bridge. Yeah. Everything that could go wrong, including getting struck by lightning.
Any questions?
Pretty quiet. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. We'll continue to follow up and give you more updates, but hopefully we'll get these things resolved, in the next month and get them settled.
As always, Steve, thank you for all your work behind the scenes. A lot of dedication, a lot of time. It certainly makes my life
I'm glad to help. Just keep me posted on anything else that comes up. I'll sign off, folks. You have a great week, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Steve. Bye, Steve.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bob, is there anything else you'd like to have?
Is that for me?
Yeah, just wondering if there's anything else
Yeah.
you'd like to have.
No, I don't have anything else.
Next item is the runway reconstruction phase 2, and Chelsea will provide update.
Okay, so today we're going to have nuclear focus conference meeting, right? And then there will also be some general investment items that are left in phase 1 and 2. But I'll also give so phase today was on the north end, and they, I think last time we met, they had completed all of it, they kind of ended it, and was just kind of shaping that. So since then, they've done all of the paving. This is a picture of the base flare that they made, and the surface flare. And then they did all of the pavement marking on that end as well. And it was open for a couple of days, and then they closed it again. And that should be open today. Phase 2B was the center section, and I think all that had happened was the milling and some storm surface. I think there was a lot. But once they got all the storms through, the drain pile place, then they did in the center section there. And they did this all very quickly. And then they ended it, and then there's this cleaning here as well. They had some nice days for this so it was fun. And then they also did pavement markings in this area. So they're all temporary pavement markings because next year it's going to be the temporary runway. So it'll all be removed and then replaced. The socket grooming is what's happening right now. This is so that the temporary runway can have the Delta plane land on it. The amount of so it's great texture for the plane. And that's they're moving along right now. So right now they're doing CA and CD, and then they're going to shift to the section on the south side of the airport here. And once they complete that, they'll do the joint and sealing. So that will happen. This is the concrete area. Phase 2B, the concrete apron, that's all complete. They do have all the software and sealing in it. They do have some silicone placed in the larger guys. That'll happen next week.
Wonderful. I don't think that picture does it justice. That's when you get, I was able to get out there, it's large.
Yeah, it's really large.
And how thick was the concrete? It was
It's
a lot of concrete.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, I guess, is there any questions on that? We'll be wrapping up by the end of next week. So that's done. Everything's easily restored, whether it grows with fall or not is a maybe, but hopefully we can some grass next spring there.
A couple of long nights under the lights there.
Yeah, with the painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had somewhere they had to be, so they were late. Yeah, they start really, really early in the morning. But they can only dump their slurry at Bowman in a certain amount of time, so they can get 3 hours in, and at Bowman's open at 7, so dump it, but they can't dump it at 5, and yeah, so.
Have you bought a house here yet?
I should.
Spend a lot of time.
Yeah, you
On the market. Nothing fun.
I just went up point.
Yeah. But yeah, we already went over I did that at no, it was the additional dedication. Got it. Okay. I remember. All right. Well, I guess that's some stuff that I might stuff.
Yeah, but I think just by next meeting, it'll be fully opened and 30 days, everything's minor little touch-up cleanups here or there. Of course, the UN, but and we gave them a certain amount of time to phase. The team worked together to really kind of jumble those phases up and the finishing stage, which is a lot of work, and I think it's everybody kind of monitoring beyond and working together to have it opened on time and not paving in a blizzard. So it's good testament to the airport for their flexibility and food to help move barricades, close, know them, and deal with on their side.
proposing different options. And everybody out there.
No, I think it was just a really great team effort this year, we all came together and worked really well, so.
Mother Nature was good.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had some wonderful weather this summer.
Yeah, if I may, old and gray enough that probably, I don't know how many hundred projects, large and small. Well, I just can't emphasize enough that working with Bill and I'll get engaged with what we're seeing, especially right now. I just can't emphasize enough what he's experienced. It's been unbelievable. To say that part is the best experience we ever seen. In fact, to a point, the Tyler Paul ended up wrote a letter to Scott and Terry, to the president of sharing our thoughts with them, with the bosses of the board of Scott I said, yeah, I just can't emphasize enough, and I'd say next time will be interesting. We'll be a bit different contract. And all that's really good.
All contractors are not equally.
No. One of you might, yes.
Right, and I know that from our.
Go ahead, Jerry.
And I just think, also, especially if you work on this project, but I think with, 2023 or whatever, when this total done, and the runway is completed, yeah, we're going to have the finest runway and taxiway in the nation. We will. Yeah. Right? And hopefully we don't narrow that taxiway back up to where it was. Yeah. People with.
And if I could, there's a lot of coordination that had to occur, and a lot of moving parts that, from an operations side, Brian, they didn't miss skip a beat, did they? Yeah. Well done.
You're happy to have it good back. Well, with that, the next meeting will have some final photos and some further questions on the runway. Muriel is on the line here with her sheriff's update.
Yep, I am here. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Weather balloon update for you. First, I want to, before I forget, thank Chelsea and Ron for all their work up at this project since I was on maternity leave and just unable to be up there in general. They've done a great job of overseeing the work done by Wagner on site. They're wrapping up this month. They've completed the new location, building foundation and slab. They did an anti-static floor coating, and that was done this weekend. This final push this weekend and last week to get done was really amazing. They relocated the building, I believe it was last week. We have a couple of photos that Chelsea will share at the end. Electrical and communications connections complete. There's a few connections that National Weather Service is doing on a small heated shack right next to the building. That'll be happening still this week. Final grading and the site work is in progress, although most of that is complete. They're just working on seating is outstanding still, so that'll be late this week, early next week. So they anticipate completing the project this week, with the exception of seating. And then liquidated damages did start this Monday. Monday they were doing some work still, and then by yesterday, I would say that they were working on maybe items that don't qualify, final completion sort of items, final painting, sweeping, that sort of thing. So they do have a few welding inspections to do yet with Braun. So there's a few things hanging out there, but for the most part, they're done. The contract final completion date is October 27th, so they do have until then to wrap up all those final cleaning and sweeping type things. The move went really well. If you want to pull up those photos from that, maybe I'll turn it over to Chelsea.
All right, so I have a few photos of the weather balloon. That they were wrap things up within the last 2 weeks here in the campus. But we're good for a second, but everything's back done. Yeah, here it is at the new site. Incredible. But one of the things they did since the last meeting was they built the foundation wall. And then they removed those and backfilled and then they moved the building. It was pretty incredible to watch. And built the trailer underneath this building, and that started moving and made sure everything was there. So
there was some betting odds going on. Oh, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so everything made it over there, and they got it all to the text, and now they're working on the welding and pour it all in, and the Arctic power and things. So things are looking really good, and I actually have the video here. We have a data timeline as well that we're working on, but a video brought. So it was pretty slow. I think the whole process was around 5 to 6 hours. It took a while for them to get everything across, but I think it worked.
Amazing.
On a not windy day.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were going to do it the day before, and they started to put the building on the trailer and looked it out, and they said, nope, it's going to fall. So.
Well, a couple of our classmates were involved.
That's right. So when does it go live? I mean, when do they start?
Yeah.
So they'll start balloon launches again actually this coming week, October 5th. They've got a crew coming up to actually train people how to launch the balloons. So they have hydrogen being delivered tomorrow. So it is up and running as of next week and should be mostly done by the end of this week.
You know, I appreciate the techies among us and the National Weather Service, our partners there. They got some class techie guys. Yeah, they got her done.
Yeah, I think the move went really well. Nothing fell off, and they got a day right in between 2 windy days. So I think they were really happy with that, and just some minor things with the stairs that were easily fixed, and yeah, Wagner's done a good job here wrapping it up. You already considered the pay application. That's for a bulk of the work that you saw in the photos: earthwork, building, foundation, building, moving, and electrical. So are there any questions on the weather balloon?
I just have one. I've always wondered what happens with the equipment, the balloon itself, and whatever is attached to it together, information. Is that ever recovered, or is it just out there?
Yeah. There's 92 locations across the United States, and they launch basically every 12 hours, all the stations. And from the time the balloon launches to the time it gets to about 98,000 feet, it takes about an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours to get there. And then after it expands to the point that it blows up, it takes about 20 minutes to descent. And they recover some. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's not a very high percentage.
Very low.
Yeah, so.
Like 5%.
And that goes up every day?
Every day.
Twice a day.
Twice a day. Got 92 locations.
Just a number of years ago, my granddaughter had a birthday.
They call them, and then they ask you to.
And she had one of those balloons. She wrote her name on it, address and phone number, and released it. About a month later, we got a call from southern Indiana.
Wow.
The person found it in their farm field. They go a long way.
Ariel, that's one question. I know you've been meeting, you've been having this meeting every week. Some
stakeholders from the weather service are on those calls. I believe their feedback was pretty good through this process. You share some of their
Yeah, I think they were really happy with the process. Bob, first years at National Weather Services, you know, he's been really happy with the work and borderline, you know, amazed that it made it across the road. You know, everybody, that was always the plan, but there was always a question.
Yeah. Yeah, folks are setting up lawn chairs up here in northern Minnesota. That's like Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause how tall is the structure? How tall is the structure?
It's about, I mean, it's no more than 30 feet. It's just very top heavy because of the dome.
Yeah. Well, we landed yesterday, and the landscape has changed a little bit. It looks just a little bit weird, you know, landing and not seeing a building there.
Make way for something else in the future.
Yep. Anything else for area? All right, thank you, area. Phase 3, no little updates. We're just tracking the start when we basically start this all over again. Phase 3 construction anticipated for May of 2020. It's hard to believe we're around dates like that already, but we're gearing up. As Brian mentioned, there's a different contractor. We're starting our planning early. We're going to meet with them this fall and make sure that we're getting everything on plan because I have some pretty tight timelines. The commissioning of a new runway on the taxi day and making sure the human approach procedures are built for that temporary runway and getting work done. So nothing really concrete to share on that one, but we're just tracking.
And if I may, not to get too far into the details, but we've had some discussions about maybe a letter from the commission just sharing with next year's contractor, just to be sure that we have some extra boilerplate per se, with the terminology, just so we're very clear on how we want this project to go, and it doesn't go in the way we want it to go, that the commission has authority to exercise whether it be a financial incentive, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess the strength of the contract, I suppose, whatever tools we have as part of the contract. And I think it would just be good to really lay out your expectations on what you're expecting out of the contractor, the construction pieces of schedule, and to be very clear that this is, as a project team, this is what we're expecting, and we're expecting that they show up every day to meet that schedule.
Yeah, just even that, right? Yeah. This is when we start work, right?
Yep.
We're done when we're done. Yeah, very simple.
So that's some work I think we're going to work on this fall, and we'll see.
Also, if I may circle back with Joe, please share about the drone flights.
Okay, so we've done some drone flights. They got approval, I think, a month or two ago, finally, from the FAA. The first flight was just around the non-movement area, so we had it kind of overlaid for the notice terminal. And this last one, we were able to close the whole airport for construction, and then we had drone flights at home. So we're going to create some videos that show the approaches for this temporary runway and how that all works.
I think we were talking specifically with our visual group, just so pilot and FNC and the approach is going to look like, how it's going to be. Sorry, I know it's sort of correct. We're saying to make it look like it's more confident.
Just curious, does the FAA allow this temporary runway on the taxiway in a lot of other cases, or is this fairly unique?
I think it's unique to some extent. It's not uncommon. I guess it's happened before.
Okay.
You were just back there.
Yeah, I was talking to the new airport manager at Sky Harbor in Duluth, previously was, like not a couple years ago. So, single runway, commercial service, from the taxiway to the runway.
If any place needs air service, it's Juneau.
Yeah.
Good or close second.
Yeah, sure. So the bonding bill, obviously the special session continue. International Falls still is in the draft bonding bill that's floating around, and I think, kind of remains to be seen what shakes out. What we're hearing from our lobbyists, that there is interest for a bonding bill, but, things come to agreement, yes, we did include the legislative update from Gary Sirsenek, one of our lobbyists provides that, and it's kind of interesting to hear, his perspective on kind of what's taking out politically with some of those funding pieces. So we'll do where I am at, and hopefully there is a bonding bill here in one of the upcoming sessions, but I think that obviously remains to be seen.
We do a lot of work with Gary.
Yeah.
And even his wife, when she was working Congressman Orchestra, way back when.
You have the picture?
Sure, and this might actually be more direct updates. I think we're just tracking some INDOT at more faith in the bonding bill that they should have. So they were basically funding.
We all need Sharon. Grab a seat. Here, check your gun at the door.
No, right, Lisa.
Why don't you hit your father? I'm sorry, the mid-concept, eventually had more faith in the legislators coming together with the bonding bill. So they didn't steer their MnDOT portion of the grant for the 2019 phase 2 grant, the work we're doing right now.
For the letter agreement from MnDOT, they have a funding agreement that they'll cost share federal projects up to a certain amount. They didn't do that for some reason. They just thought the bonding bill was going to cover that share, and that's not over. We'll see how we are. So I think we brought it up at a CIP meeting last week. They've been bringing it up, and I don't know if the response is all that great, but I don't know what the appropriate action is at this point. I think they're aware that it's probably like $400,000. I think they're trying to figure out maybe how to do that. MnDOT claims that they're out of money. One potential avenue would be a formal request for that grant. I didn't really have a chance to talk to these different alternatives for this, but one the wait and see approach is to say that your budget. One is to say for the freight letter you're eligible for that. The bonding bill still needs to be determined, so that's officially dead. There's still a chance that's correct.
I don't think so. I mean, I think, if you were to follow up with a formal letter to MnDOT, we could say that, if you got the bonding dollars, which in theory would cover that entire local share, including what MnDOT typically would say, that you would, essentially give back from MnDOT money, if that would help at all. I don't know if that would help, but, I think they're just kind of stuck and they don't know what to do either.
The governor trying to get them back together after the election here.
I think there has to be a session in October. They don't.
Yeah, I guess that's frustrating. Well, maybe a recommendation would be to wait and see what happens with the October special session. MnDOT's aware of it, but for your next meeting, I mean, a letter basically saying that, financially, this is very factual that financially you're counting on that money.
and I'm ready for the Monday break letter, over that money. Maybe a 1 month wait if they come through, and then, that's up to the, October.
Sean mentioned the CIP meetings that we had, that was, with MnDOT and FAA, talked about upcoming projects. A few kind of interesting things of note, the federal government and the Senate and the House talk about, multiple different, paths for a COVID relief bill. There does seem to be interest currently in potentially doing some sort of, either 100% funding for FAA projects next year, or I've also seen versions that just have, a certain dollar amount that's going towards paying the local share. So depending on how many projects, maybe it could be 100%, but it's 90% or some other percent. But more FAA funding than you typically would get in a regular year. There still needs to be some consensus between the House and the Senate on those, but there is the potential that next year's project could see a higher funding rate from the FAA, potentially 100%. There is also language in some of the bills that has kind of another CARES type funding mechanism where you would just get that grant amount to spend on airport expenses. So you guys got that this past spring. Some of the versions you have another kind of CARES Act 2.0 where you would get some amount of money based on your employment and other factors. I don't think there's a lot of information on what that would look like yet, but there is also the potential for that. But we kind of need to see where things shake out, and obviously the election kind of puts a wrinkle in things as well as they're trying to negotiate some of those things. So we're watching all of that, and if we see updates, kind of come through our channels, definitely forward those on as it relates to potential CARES Act grant for additional funding for next year. But I guess back to the conversation with FAA and MnDOT, I guess we were talking about, there would be an advantage to ensure that you have enough projects that are kind of potentially on the menu for next year, so that if there is 100% funding, that you could take the full advantage of that with whatever project you guys felt was appropriate. So something to keep in mind. Some of the potential projects talked about for either next year or within the coming next few years. The ARC truck replacement. I don't know, Thor, do you want to share something about that, the need for that?
Yeah, our current truck is a 1996 model, and we're very happy. There's no issues with all the time. One of the complexity came in the past where we were reluctant to purchase a new truck. Was at that time reminding the group that they took the category 4 airports, or an airport size and capacity, and reduced dramatically the specification, capability, and size of the truck. And these numbers, I maybe could remind you based on numbers. Right now, we're currently 600 gallons of water, 200 gallons of foam, 400 pounds of dry 10, and they reduced that requirement to, I want to say, it's virtually nothing. 250 gallons. I can't remember. It was ridiculous. Yeah, 200 gallons and a 35 horse pump. And to put that in perspective, we're running 600 horsepower pump at the time. And so, and I still stand strong with that belief that we don't, unless we can get a waiver. I got a whole bunch of changes in the regulations from that point to this point. But I would still highly recommend that you not get a truck at the same level that we are right now. That would not be the regression of safety.
It's the opposite of the way they're usually
correct.
So
from that perspective, regarding the discussion we had with the FAA last week, we used to have it on the radar. If I may, before I forget, please share and remind me of the issues.
Oh, yeah.
It was the money.
Yes. So your annual entitlement that you get from the FAA is just over $1 million. $1 million and some change that you get every year as part of your AIT funding entitlement. you have the opportunity to, lend that money out or borrow extra from other airports. And, the airports in Minnesota have been really good about, moving money around when somebody doesn't need it and somebody that does need it and paying it back at a later date. So Busy owes International Falls, I believe, $500,000. And I think there has been multiple years where the repayment date has been kind of shifted around. And that really has been really in the best interest of both airports to continue to kind of move that around the previous years. Last year, the last couple of years, when you're getting that discretionary grant, whether your project is $5 million or $20 million, you take your first $1 million and that comes off the top, and whatever's left, the FAA pays is discretionary. So there's no benefit to you guys to have that extra $500,000. So there was an agreement with the Navy to delay that repayment, but that is something you can pursue for this upcoming year. You could have about $1,500 in entitlements for $1,550,000. $1.5 million in entitlements spent for this upcoming year.
A lot of zeros.
Yeah. So that potentially is on the table for these projects. So the ARC truck replacement is definitely a potential project that can be considered for next year. Thor mentioned there is, I don't know if waiver is the right word, but a waiver process to go through where you can build justification with the FAA to hopefully get that big response that's similar in size to what you have today. FIFA Revolve just did that this past year, and they used some supplementary information on the time it would take for mutual aid and others to get to the airport in certain events. So we could work on that with the FAA and hopefully kind of have a similar outcome that FIFA Revolve did, getting support for that. And I know other airports in the FAA region have done that as well outside of Minnesota. So hopefully there's FAA support for that path. Another thing we talked about is the building area planning study. So if you remember when we did the temp for the runway project and all of that planning, and we started to consider the idea of moving the Blue Launch facility, one of the key reasons why there was really a benefit to moving that off of airport property rather than just shifting it over a little bit is that would open up that area for future airport development for hangars. Your current airport layout plan, shows the hangar development extending towards the north, beyond your existing hangar area, but that area does have more wetland areas, so it would be a higher mitigation cost, unfortunately, and other environmental steps you have to go through, and potentially an expansion, towards the area where the old balloon launch facility was, probably is a more cost-effective place to continue to build hangars, as well as an easier path environmentally as far as getting the environmental review done with the FAA and any future wetlands from it. So the building area planning study would be a pretty small planning study, really with the goal of just developing a layout for that building area and showing really the justification that you guys need more hangar space to the FAA. And then you would have that plan in place for when you would want to come back at a later date and build a new taxi lane or new hangars. Right now, your airport layout plan just says, this is a future development area, but there hasn't been any planning done yet. Runway 422 is another thing that the FAA brought up, just purely because of the pavement condition index to the time. And their feedback was that they would really want the airport commission to consider doing, some sort of repair, whatever is appropriate to that runway ahead of doing phase 4 of 1331, because the 1331, the phase 4 pavement area, that's about the last 900 feet on the southern end, is still in pretty good condition, and it has a higher pavement condition index. So DFA encouraged you to consider 422 ahead of phase 4 of the primary runway, and it sounded like agency-wide there's a much higher focus on those PI values, and there's less maybe flexibility at the local level for the ADOs to support doing something that maybe when you're just looking at the paper numbers might not make sense. So I think they're being pushed as an agency to look and use that data a little bit more strongly. No removal of equipment building, and after rebuilding, we also talked about that as a potential project, and then obviously also tracking phase 4 of the 1331 project, at some point here in the near future. But we did, I think, the consensus of the group was that probably that wouldn't be a project for next year. But any of the other, potential projects that are on there. So there's a few different ways, you could potentially mix and match projects for next year, depending on, what you guys feel is the most urgent need and the priorities from your perspective. But, potentially you could acquire an ARC truck, replacement truck, a larger truck size, and do potentially design only for streets and a building area planning study, all within this next year. Tom and I were talking a little bit about, there could be potential to make it work with doing design and construction of 42, but one idea we had was that we did design only and then waited a year through construction. By that time, you'd be done with the building area planning study, and maybe you could get FAA support to build that new taxi lane the same year with the same contractor on board. You might have a little bit of cost savings with that taxi lane project. And, that depends too on what you guys feel the hang the need is out here, and if that's, more of an urgent near-term need, or if it's something that you want to push out.
When we're looking at the crosswind, are we looking at complete reconstruction, or how's that work?
We have to, take a little bit closer on it, something that we're on the mental or shoot them. Some of them are pretty big. It doesn't see the heavier, larger aircraft that 161 does the smaller aircraft. So I think it would really be dependent on what the geotechnical studies would indicate and what the structure is soiled on. A rehab would probably be fine, just to get down a little bit, but I think we have to really look at the analysis to make sure that's.
My other question would be, our neighbor with the $500,000, how much, what's the process, how much notification would we need to give them for us to get our money back? That type of thing.
I think, we could reach out to them, in October and kind of see, part of it is, what do they have for their projects, and, figuring out how that blends with what you guys have. But I think, we can have a conversation with them in October. So I think it is important to know if you have that extra chunk of money or not, that obviously influences what you decide to do for projects next year. So I think the next step would be, a conversation with Karen and the Mindy in October, and then to circle back with kind of what their thoughts are on that repayment. The repayment paperwork is due usually in early May, but it can cost us any time after that.
Yes, I just think you should know where we're at anyway.
I think the one big unknown is what they call zero tax. So there's these different aspects of it. So if it's 100% funded, you can't go wrong. So you want to be in a position to pass down that funding that's available. Sure, but Congress has issues on how they're going to support the coronavirus. We want to make sure everyone's in position.
The other thing to consider, if you did, some of the potential projects are all things where you don't really have to move forward with a whole lot until you actually have the grant. So the ARC planning study or design only, those are things that, you would sign a contract for, but you wouldn't actually do any of the work, as opposed to, if you were going to do, what I'm trying to say is you have, a menu of things, and you could, if you have 100% funding, move forward potentially with all of them. And if you don't have 100% funding and from a local share that doesn't make sense to move forward, you could pick only one of those items to move forward. And you would continue to have that flexibility up until you submit your grant application, probably. So with these projects, luckily this year does sometimes a lot of flexibility as far as you could plan, this menu of things and still back out of all of them or half of them, sometimes with grant application. So it is nice to have a little bit extra flexibility on the project side. Thoughts or questions on any of the CIP projects? The project initiation forms, which are just kind of the initial kind of package of intent that you submit to the FAA, are due on November 15th. So potentially then in October, we could bring, figure out some more concrete feedback from the Mid-Sea on their intent with that payback, and then finalize, again, it would just be a preliminary list of what you would want to see in the project appreciation package to the CFA.
Anything else?
We just have the few just meeting notices up there that we've completed.
Any questions?
I'm just curious, Joe's not here, but the snow removal equipment building, would that be in addition to what would be on the other end of that, or between the, where would that be located?
It could be something that's developed as part of the building planning, but you can find that location.
Oh, okay.
For it. CFA has a very restrictive way of sizing those buildings. So I think we want to take a look at what FAA funding supposed to have in the past, what equipment you authorize, and then the square foot calculations to determine how big that building is at the village. So it's a little bit of work to figure out exactly where how big.
All right, any other questions? Anything else, Rich? Thank you. We'll move on then. What? Public involvement, stakeholder engagement, CIP meeting.
And all those were completed and December weekly meetings, so we're still working on those.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. We'll move on then to old business. Final budget review. How far are we?
Curious, would it be possible to another sheriff on my schedule?
Yeah.
Possible.
Well, that's no problem.
Anyway.
You guys okay?
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Go for it.
Okay. Thank you. Little review, quickly. We invited the sheriff and invited Terry today's meeting, and in the discussion in the past, we're getting too far into the weeds with the history on armed security requirements involving the National Airport. So 911 happened, obviously. At that point in time, sort of a response with the armed security and big flights, the departure, rear arrivals, etc. As it evolves out, just reminded the group that it's happening with law enforcement, utilizing both the county side and city side was. They justifiably came back to the airport commission and said, hey, it's really expensive for us to do this in order to have a armed security officer at each state's departure. That, in essence, it's the opposite, $100,000 package, whatever it was, to bring on to, and, for both the city and the county. And at that point in time, the airport commission lets the bill to find a security firm, which is led by Bob Lyman, who's respectful and Terry, and that's the sequence of events. Recently, it has been brought to our attention through our latest TSA representative that he has some new security directives. What we have discovered is that armed security, and it's a multi-faceted situation, but overly simplified, that if you have a framework response from local law enforcement and the national falls in combination of the city and the county, is the fact that we're reminded that the property lines in the city and the county staff, they run along the sidewalk. So, in fact, I believe the building now actually has that. Anyway, that's where it's at. So when this information came to my attention, and we've had multiple discussions with the representative of TSA, just to verify that that isn't true. And the other smaller airports, including Minnesota, the Ridgey, Greater, were involved in giving they're on a quote-unquote flexible response time also. So to be sensitive to Terry's needs and his company needs is that I just felt and know that I need to share the information with the Airport Commission to share that, just so we know, all right. I didn't want to be missing the information that this information has come forward to us now. I've had brief conversations with Terry. Had a meeting with the sheriff to able to go over the launch and that's the information that I'm bringing to the commission today. I have the security director in my hand. I believe you have copies.
Yeah, I have a little bit. I don't think I have the whole.
Right. And then having had a discussion with the DSA folks just yesterday. Anyway, that's an essence of the sentence. And I'm a little bit because it's not that big of a concern to me, but it's a big concern to DSA to share the information. I think a paragraph out of here would cover a good deal of the information. Federal security directives, in consultation with the airport operator and local law enforcement, may make a determination in certain circumstances that a law enforcement officer, LEO, or airport armed security guard, FO, may not have to be posted at the airport security screening location as described in Section 3 and 4 of the security directive. The LEO airport armed security guard who is allowed this flexible response time must be on site and able to provide the necessary security and surveillance, visual deterrence response to incidents, at the passenger and baggage screening checkpoints. It goes into more detail. We could certainly, I would recommend that if the group wants to have a private setting, if you want a private meeting, and we can go farther into the language, we can certainly do that. I'm not sure it's necessary, but that's the information that I'm sharing.
Is it possible for me to get it?
Oh, of course. You can carry a gun with hands.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
I never had so many roadblocks.
Yeah.
Right. The story is fresh in memory. I think when this came about 9 years ago, or well, 911. But there was also the issue about arrest authority, and at one point FAA or TSA or whatever paid for our security, and then they withdrew that payment, and that cost shift went on to the individual airports to cover that. Is that correct?
That is very accurate.
And is the arrest authority, that was also part of why we had to have a licensed security group. And I don't know, Terry, if you had the arrest authority.
We don't have, through my licensing through the state of Minnesota, I don't have the right to arrest, but we have the power to handcuff and hold you and hold.
And then that puts a 20-minute response from law enforcement, right? It could make that.
Because otherwise you have that gappage of what's going to happen.
And what really put this over the top was when FAA pulled out of funding the airport, and that cost shift was, it's a lot of money for us to pay. So I mean, this came on, and also when the lights went on, say, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? But I don't think anybody's trying to put anybody out of business. We're trying to work our way through this, see what is best for your business, for the sheriff's office, for the city, but also for the airport and for the taxpayers. And we got to really look at it.
So it's my understanding from last Friday that I already told me that there is some who are being subsidized, not much.
The security contract is covered under our M&O grant.
Sorry. Provided by the state. And what percentage of that is covered?
I believe our M&O is 7/3. And that covers all maintenance operations. So, I want to say that it's roughly.
Who's 30?
We're
30. Okay.
So we get roughly $112,000 from operation.
Total.
Yeah, that they reimburse us for.
And we pay 45,000, $50,000, right?
For,
Right.
Security, right?
yeah.
And, you know, and then the 20-minute response time, and, you know, you look at it and say, well, my gosh, you know, we got Sheriff's Department, City Department, but we have planes landing at all times. We don't know what our schedule's going to be, and you have weekends, right, where the sheriff has 2 deputies on, and one could be in Birchdale, and one could be in Island View, right, and the city is, so who's going to respond? So that becomes an issue, and something we have to weigh. Especially in those types of times when on the off shift. So.
And there is, I mean, granted, anytime you call 911, I'm not speaking for you. Maybe a little bit. For personal reasons. But, you know, you call 911, and granted, they're going to respond. But there's always the what if, and there's always murky law, like, what if? Even if it's during the week, what if they have an emergency at the lake, they have an emergency in, who knows where, Mid-Pond. Yeah, exactly, right? And it can happen, and it does happen. And then the city has whatever going on, you're still going to have that huge delay in the response time to the airport. And my theory is that presence is a huge concern. And I've been told that by numerous people who go through this airport. Hundreds of thousands of people that go through this airport, minus the last few months. But the whole idea of just presence alone is a huge deterrent to any issue that we ever have had here. There's many times where either it would be TSA or Delta employees, you know, they call for me or one of my representatives, and we pretty much handle it. So if you were to look in the record book as to how many 911 calls have been, probably very few, if any.
And I don't have those numbers. I did run those numbers last month and the month before for TSA. And it was very few incidents that we actually responded to the airport. That's the missing piece we don't know. When I had this conversation with Woody, is how many incidents were prevented by having our security right there. That's the piece we don't know. We don't know how many incidents were non-incidents because of that presence.
By the way, if you haven't been to Silverdale, you're on the list.
Right.
First time I had a meeting there 28 years ago, three of them came to the meeting with guns. Luckily I had Carol, so.
You know, I just from the sheriff's office perspective, if the question is posed, what is your typical response time on an average day to the airport? You could probably say yes, it is fine, good. If nothing else happening, 20 minutes or less. So, I mean, if that's the only question, it fits. However, we're not going to get involved in passenger screening, anything like that, right? So, I mean, if you elect to go a different route than what you have now, just based upon that 20-minute response time, if everything goes good, fine, it'll probably be okay. But if you start having a lot of incidents out here and then require armed security, now you just basically have to start it over again. It's just something, something to think about, and I think there's probably needs discussion.
And there are some, I was involved in one pre-March, where it was a drug seizure in the back row of the state. And because not just me, but any one of my guys being there, read the process up, so it was possibly going to delay the flight, and of course, that's huge. And it wasn't delayed because of this involvement in the seizure of that drug. So that's not a violent thing, but it's a drug thing. So that does happen.
I think if we've got a conversation now, we as the commission have to take care of people's money, which it is, but
I mean, I think it makes sense, especially when you start talking about airline schedules. You know, one instance, I'll hearing you delay flying for 2-3 hours for something that happened because we could not respond.
And in this day and age too, with what's going on, I think it's a smart idea to have somebody here, armed security, whatever it may be, again, for deterring. So volatile situation we're living as well.
Can I respond?
Starting to,
Can I
it's just
respond?
changing rapidly.
Because I had to call the sheriff. Well, I was at my house because I had to deal with rental car customers. And I didn't know who these people were, but they had tried to rent a car. And it was right after the George Floyd incident, which I don't remember when that was, then in June or early July-ish. So anyway, these people called me numerous times trying, you know, to get me to come out here and rent them a car. And so I thought, okay, I'll go. And then I thought, I'm going to call the police station. Well, I didn't call 911. I just called the regular line and asked if they could, you know, come out to the airport because I wasn't sure what I was dealing with. So I came out and I had these two people wanting to rent a car. One was white, Caucasian, and the other one was colored. And that the colored person had a few other incidents with the police. And there was no police here at the time, but anyway, and I was instructed not to rent these people a car. And so I had to explain these to the people. I also had to call my boss and have him talk to them because all of a sudden I got thrown the colored card, you know, and it was not, I was not in a comfortable situation. Well, it just happened that the sheriff officer did come out, you know, but, you know, I came from my house and, you know, I took my time getting to the airport, so it was probably, you know, 15, 20 minutes, you know, for them to respond. And, you know, the people proceeded to go out, but, you know, the sheriff went and talked to them. You know, but it was, you know, and you know, it was just seeing that officer, you know, drive his truck going into the parking lot. You know, again, you know, and this was, you know, 5 o'clock, but, and I almost called, you know, Laura's office and said, can you bring, you know, the yellow truck down or something, you know, because it's notorious vehicle, you know, to deter these people. You know, you don't know what situation you're getting into, you know, and you're this, you know, other person was getting upset, and, you know.
Speaking of crime, I have to confess, I stole someone. They were just right there, I couldn't tell.
Okay, just here or there, take a moment.
Well, just to reiterate, though, we have and will continue to respond in your report. I just think I'm not making the decisions. I realize it's financial, but if you go down the road of eliminating private security and just rely upon local law enforcement, like I say, we're not going to get into the passenger screening and things like that. We will respond to police calls like we do for any other business, resident, anything like that, but there's no contract with your airport, there's nothing like that that guarantees a certain level of service above and beyond what everyone gets.
Go ahead. That's my question too. We contractually, we are in an annual contract.
Yeah.
When does it renew? As in, like,
usually it's the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Okay. 3 years. Okay.
September or October.
That's like a 30-day legislative party.
Okay. Just clear. Good question.
So just so I understand, you do have the authority then to detain.
Correct.
That's part of the goal.
Correct. That's with the way. Whereas if you have somebody who's not armed or anything, they have not. But because I have a higher license, that's why we do have obviously a firearm and then the obviously all that.
I would think any time that you have to detain with handcuffs, I think it's responsible. sirens.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that's a very good point. Like that's gonna so other calls get put aside to respond to. But if you know someone finds a half adult time ammunition in a passenger's pocket, right? That's really low priority for us. You know, we have other stuff going on. But I clearly again, and Brian, maybe you can attest to this, is that when they do find something back, that is a Leo issue, and they have to contact law enforcement for non-presence. And that, depending on the season, it happens quite frequently. And again, that's helpful. So that's helpful. Well, yeah, and which I like, which is a emergent situation on the flight end. It's not a high priority for us. Right. There's this less outside whack, and you do get funding with the that is Friday.
Or just as a side note, are we seeing an increase in passengers?
Yeah,
it's slowly coming back.
For sure. It's in the 20s the last few days.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know.
My point being, obviously, is more passengers, there's more possibility.
Right. Sure. I mean, oh man, it's just more.
Has anybody been removed from a plane for not wearing a mask here, or is it? Okay.
So anyway, at this point, just information on.
Yeah, and if at any point I'd be more than happy to meet again, or any particular anything like that. I think it was just I know it was discussed last month, and then we put on for some more discussion. And Dora had reached out to me, and I think it's just important for everyone to have all the information and look at it, and ultimately it comes down to a financial decision, and therefore it should be weighed it.
You folks are here all the time. I mean, we have to hear from you.
Right.
You're here too. So.
Carrie, you have 3 staff?
Well, yeah. It varies. One was snowbird, and
okay.
So I've had as many as 5.
Thank you.
I think at this point it's a discussion item, and again, it's good to get the conversation out there, and we all understand it. At this point, I think we still have a contract with Gary's group, and continue we have a budget. I think right now it's in the budget, so see where it goes from there. But right now we have a contract, and further discussion, I'm sure we bring everybody in.
Yeah, feel free. Any questions for me? Just reach out or invite me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Where were we?
Budget. Sure you don't want to hang around for the budget? Come on, boy. Come on back.
All that fun stuff.
In fairness to Mr. Punting, we've always operated, we have contracts, and we have outs on contracts. But I don't necessarily ever feel comfortable outing on a contract. I mean, I think it's an agreement that you sign. So let the contract run out, and then we'll move from there.
Yeah, unless there's some circumstances there. Yeah, agreed.
Kyra?
So I met with the city and county recently, and we had a discussion on the airport financials with the project and whatnot. The city and county are moving for the city, being our fiscal agent, towards the fund account separated out, so we'll have operations, capital projects, capital improvements. So it was recommended that we reflect our budget that way. So what I have done is the first part of sheet 8 is the operation budget. There was a couple of things I changed, nothing too much, but our budget did decrease. We went down to we're a negative 15% over last year, which is good. So it's just a better reflection of all the operations. And then
Actually, and you know, long overdue. We probably should have had a system like this always. Yeah, this is great.
So then the following page is the capital project budget, and that basically is the runway, any large type of project that we're doing, whether we'll have phase 3 on there. You know, going forward, that's where our big project features will be budgeted. And then I have it broken out with the state shares and federal shares as well. And then the last page is the capital improvement piece. So that's basically any equipment upgrades or anything land or anything like that. And basically this piece of it will be a budget, and so that funding will go in, and then the airport will actually start approving funds into this account, so that when we do have a larger project or improvements that are needed, there will be funds to cover that local share already in there, so we won't have to ask going to city county for this. The airport will have funds available to themselves for that.
Well, all I can say is one improvement. I can understand this. So you did a great job. It makes this idea much clearer and easier to see where we're at all the time. Great job. Thank you. Any questions or comments on this? Go ahead, Brian.
I don't know, maybe Sean can help with this too, but you cover the $1 million that we received for COVID. I mean, is that reflected anywhere in our revenues?
It's not reflected in the budget, and the reason I kept it out is because we're not really sure on how the funding goes. I haven't submitted a first credit report yet, and so for this year, we decided to keep the funding where it is, and we don't know on reimbursement how quick those will be. And so instead of putting in that year's funding, we decided to just leave it out until next year when we know a little bit better on how everything will go.
Right, whether the bonding package ensures that we can use this CARES, money, not CARES money, but the total money be used for portions of the county city shares. I don't know, those are all questions we need answered, I believe.
Yeah, I think you might have a little more experience with some of the
Yeah, you should be able to use them for local share. I think DFA is considering that an operational cost and not a separate capital project. Because if you use the money for a construction project, there are additional steps to that money. But if you're just paying the local share of a already FAA funded project, I believe that's what you should find.
Mm-hmm. Right. How about for M&O? That money be used for M&O?
This is actually, our M&O grant has been combined with your grant, so it's all one right now. So our M&O is being paid 100%.
For our city budgets, it's like $265,000 or something. Our share, and we're wondering whether we're going to be able to take that 65, but it's going to really make a difference when we try and finalize that our budget through the levy here.
And that was a discussion during our financial meeting was, and that's why we kept it in. The city share kept that piece of it into the budget, and we didn't put in shared funding because there's just so many unknowns with reimbursements and all of that sort of thing. But once we get that shared money, then there won't more than likely be a local share next year for any M&O. And if there's a reimbursement that we send back to the county, that'll be a discussion at a later time as well. So, but at this point, we thought it was best to just keep it in, and so that we're not running into a cash flow deficit again.
But because it seems like the rules are always changing. I'm on a hospital board, and we've gotten a lot of money. But every time we're using it, the rules are changing, and so we don't want to get ourselves in the bind that we use it and then not put it back.
There's a lot of oversight.
That's the case here.
That's just to be clear, that $1 million isn't parked in our account. It's a reimbursable fund.
Yeah,
up to, and it's
very good point.
And it's over a period of what, 4 years?
Right. We're not sitting on that.
Yeah, I think there's,
We're heading there.
The question is to make sure that we're using, if we use it on the M&O, you know, is it gonna be good or are we gonna end up having to pay?
yeah.
Right.
Right, and I'm currently working on our first reimbursement or credit asking for it all, so it basically I can start in January of this year and get 100% through, you know, for all of our maintenance operations.
I'm sure Ken will be right on that.
I just love it when our children are educating us.
Just one other quick question. I should ask one when Sean was doing the presentation. But Bemidji, the 500,000 discretionary. What all can that be used for?
The FAA eligible.
Only FAA eligible projects.
We get interest on that, because we're at it for a long time.
That's a really good question.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a piece of next year's project for phase 3 that we did some CARES Act funding, correct? So we didn't ask for a state share because we were going to some CARES funding.
Yeah, the phase 3 was a supplemental grant, so that has a local share. But that second grant, which was what it was the reimbursement percent, you know, that was 100%. So there's the normal grant and then supplemental.
Yeah.
So it's kind of 2 grants. I think that's really complicated.
All right, any other comments or questions on that?
We need a motion to approve the budget. Are we ready for that?
Motion? We've got a motion. Is there a second?
City County.
Approve the budget as presented. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Karen. Okay, airport audit agreement. We need an audit.
I didn't include the whole letter in the packet. I just included the rates for next year. I did send that out, the fair letters and something. There's also a copy of the 2019 audit there, which is your copy. But basically, the agreement is with Schlenner, Leonard and Company. They've done our audit for the last few years. This is a 3-year agreement, and the way that the rates are working is they will have basically a sliding fee, so it'll increase. There's a number of different reports that they have to do the auditing, the single audit, and different things like that. So they do a really nice job with it all. For 2020, the cost is estimated at $13,985. 21 goes up to $14,585, and 22 $15,195.
You recommending?
Yeah.
You know, they do a really great job, and they're very helpful, and we've kind of streamlined the process quite a bit, and come a long way with the audit. And you know, basically, I send them a box of all my files, and say, here you go, and they go through everything, and they're really great for it.
When Kyra says we've, she's come along.
I'm part of that. I agree. We got it.
Notes on all the notes here. More people could read that chat.
We gotta keep Brian and Kyra on our throat.
Yeah, so we need a motion to approve contract with our audit firm. Move.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the audit agreement. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Kyra. Managers report. Mr. Einerson.
Oh, thank you.
How's life going here?
Wonderful. Yeah. As usual, a lot of our reports are covered in the body of the meeting. Here we go. 139 inspection. Interesting. First year, hopefully the only year. In fact, I know it will be the only year because I'm not going to keep that is that we've done the majority of our quote-unquote paperwork inspections electronically, and that has caused us hundreds of hours of extra work. Overly simplified, literally taking 20 plus binders and taking all the information, scanning it, documentation, new apps, new files, unlimited, and having discussions with other small numbers of airports. They've all began to say that we're not going to do anything. It's so incredibly complex. So the good news that we've passed that one hurdle. We've got the rubber stamp that we have the paperwork portion, electronic portion complete. We still don't have a date of the inspector's arrival for the inspection. It's really kind of an uncomfortable situation because they've told us there's a possibility that we may have an on-site inspection, and at the same breath we may not have an on-site inspection. So we're waiting, and again with Sean, it's been very, very helpful because it's interesting to say the least that we can quote-unquote inspect the requirement. It's quite challenging, I would say. Now, a good note, not to get too hopeful per se. Been in contact in the last week with an aircraft company that they've visited us for a couple of weeks in January. Just for the testing, to make more steps. Also, and also the rest is going on there. But other than that, super thankful that we're ending the construction season on the airport projects and picking it up again in spring and off we go and hoping and praying for the best that we get through this COVID situation and reopen the border and reopen the national flights. Folks, other than that, thank you everyone.
Things are slowly recovering.
Slowly recovering. This flight check. That's a good question. FAA yesterday, all of a sudden they called us again. Flight check, we're checking the DOR, and no prior notification. Don't tell us. And it's our check. Yeah, and the shot in fact was flying in. And so they were doing nav checks for us yesterday. Yeah, it was Sean's fault. And so, yeah, they were here yesterday, and dealing with our organization is pretty common. Is that you must do it like this and our way, and you do schedule the dates, and then on their whim they can show up and thanks guys for telling us. We'll just
any questions?
Well, the only reason I brought it up is because comes in and all of a sudden he gets on the ramp, there's a circle, and going right back off, and then he's coming in, and I go, what's this guy doing?
Here's the guy who's landing. He's talking to him. Hey, where are you guys going? I know I'm going. Yeah. They should have one of those taxiways. You don't open. Don't tell me. Chelsea's fault. Why can't I open?
Brian, is there any country trips coming up, or
Well, I heard there was one, but then I heard it's canceled, so I don't know, they don't want to deal with us, they want to deal with Florida.
Oh, thank you.
They don't like our company.
Yeah, excellent. Great question. Through the COVID, through the dramatic reduction of flights, which affected the relationship between Sun Country and Unified with UTV. Okay, so now Unified, UDGS, very recently, through the COVID situation, the relationship between Sun Country, and his invite has always stayed kind of plain. And nice and descriptive. To the point that they absolutely not talking to each other. Any location that Sun Country is now servicing, there is zero contact with these teams. So of course what's happened is that in Minnesota, where we employ these local team members operating groundwork flights, that relationship is severed. So they contacted us and asked us about this, and we're asking if my team, the FBO team, could do it, and that's not possible. And each airport is different. In this case, just like it was the ground equipment, the ground support equipment, Douglas has Skywest not on it. That of course adds a level. They have to bring in all the ground support equipment they require, their own personnel, all the training, all the licensing, all the documentation alone would take months just to get certified.
Other FBOs that do that?
Yeah. We had to go through special training, some country training, over and above our own.
So, to make a short answer long, I do not believe what we see, and then we're still going to do
And then we
everyone, they're all experiencing that family. None of
play
them.
nice.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Someone in that, someone did the first move, right? Through the, there was some strong contractual language, and I'm assuming that in the contractual language, we didn't have that little paragraph, acts of God, quotation marks, whatever. And so that wasn't in there, called it acts of God, or whatever. So they're sending the court to the court right now, like, different world.
On that.
Please.
I did call Don Laughlin and question because they never notify us of when flights run. So I usually hear from TSA because they get notified. So then they ask me, and I said, well, so then I'll call, and I just explained to them. I said, because the one in October was canceled. So when they canceled that one, I called the AV. Why was it canceled, or is it canceled? Whatever, and they just said it was canceled due to no participation. And I said, well, if you would let us know, we could help market it, because I got the notification last week that the flight was happening, so I started marketing it, and now this week is canceled. So, and that was the beginning of September. So I don't know what kind of leeway that they have for canceling that flight either. So there's a lot of weird things that it's kind of
very good point. I want to say they contacted us in July, possibly. Yeah, it was months ago. Yeah, sure.
But I don't say anything about it.
Well, they absolutely, and quite often the airport operators will be the last to know the flight was coming. That's true. We literally.
That was weird last time.
Yeah, you're showing up. Oh, great. Yeah.
I see it on Facebook that people are, hey, this guy makes a call. We haven't heard of that.
Is the November one canceled? No, it is. But it's canceled. It's canceled. Because I heard there was no interest, or they didn't have. And I think the Canadian piece of it is large, with the border being closed, because those flights were a portion of the Canadian. Like maybe that really hurts, but again, let us know and we can help get the word out. Making phone calls to have customers isn't going to fill a plane. At this point, like I said, with the Canadian border.
Oh, great point.
Next story I asked.
On that cheerful note. Okay. Well, Secretary's report. What else was on your mind?
Complainants in the packet, you will see that our complainants were up slightly over last month, which is good. Hopefully we continue that way. Still not where we like to be, but PGA Cup, so there's playoff baseball game, monthly fifth and a half, the commission has chosen to do the $40 package, single package, so I will let the commission wishes to see with that one.
What are the wishes of the board here?
Could be over very quickly.
Better pack them in, right? So it won't be too expensive. 17 in a row now we've lost. Do we need a motion to move to enter agreement with radio station for broadcast advertisement? Sure.
Single package?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Go over Thursday.
Okay, we've got a motion by Brian, a second by Paul on the single package. That's correct. Okay. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, we call a question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next from marketing, I was contacted by Chris at Video, to see if the commission would be interested in doing any digital marketing. He sent me several options in the beginning at the budget was our entire marketing budget, and I said, that's not going to work, I'm sorry, but if you could get something more realistic for a small airport, so I said I would put it before. So this morning, or last night, he sent me a proposal which is basically some banner ads that would go digitally, and that would be at $215 per month. I did ask if there was a minimum contract signed, if 3 months, how it goes. I believe we've done this in the past, and it was okay. It wasn't real great, but he said that the contract length is a 6 to 12 month contract.
So these banner ads, where are they on?
So they'll pop up on your computer or your phone, just an ad here or there.
Oh,
all that stuff you really love.
Yeah. So, with things right now and, our marketing,
I don't think marketing is going to get people to fly right now.
Yeah.
and
I might as well use Ontario license plates on the parking lot. They can be there a while. So obviously, just like let me share the Jerson family. Have they gotten back to Thailand yet?
No, they just sent me a birthday wish from Indonesia, so.
They've been out there long, right?
Yeah.
end of February. End of February, then, right?
Amazing.
6 months.
Well, Kyra, you didn't sound real enthusiastic with this, so I'm kind of taking your...
I don't know at this point in time with COVID and everything else going on, it's going to be the best thing for our bus type of thing. Later on down the road, when things increase, I think, and there's more people traveling, this winter maybe, do a little bit more, but...
Hold off for now.
There's a whole lot of questions about maybe in Snowbird being able to go or not. Whether their government doesn't let it go.
I don't think they can right now.
I think they've threatened to pull their insurance.
Right, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, that's where they know if they travel, they pull their insurance.
It's a huge hammer over your head, over there. All right, well, let's there's anyone.
That's what you gotta go.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
All right, so that's that. Kyra, anything else?
The artwork, I had attended the sale of it in Joyce's, had approved aviation-related artwork for purchase. She is working on getting with all frames. I talked to her yesterday about the frames and everything. They're going to look really
Four
nice.
that we picked up?
Yeah. So they'll be really nice. So the total estimated cost would be about $500 for this 4 prints, and that was frame. So once I get those back from her, then we'll get those hung up in the terminal here.
Nice touch, too.
Very good.
Linda Joyce gave me a gift, and I don't have room for this gift, so I'm giving it to the airport, but it has to get hung up in the terminal somewhere, not just.
Brian, you're familiar with this guy.
Yeah. Something I can never find.
We can find a spot for it.
It's very nice.
Thank you.
Who gave it to you?
Linda Joyce gave it.
Oh, okay.
I know.
Out of the net.
Yeah. Happened to do quite a few things.
That's really nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. And whatever, you know, that's all the travelers, summer tourists are coming up to get, and all that mighty walleye.
That looks really
Did you send pictures to the commission?
Yeah.
So they've seen it, but I thought they were very nice. Thank you. Very well.
Yep.
And then lastly, the Washington kiosk, they are now done. So I sent an email out to the local coffee shops and theaters and found to see if there would be any interest. Pretty small coffee shops or some sort of offering coffee and snacks with the pint of beer. And so the coffee machine has been taken out just by sending, and so there's nowhere in the terminal to get coffee for customers. So I did have one response back from one of them, and they are looking, or they came in, we looked at the space, we discussed some possibilities for different things. We were going to take it back and kind of think on it a little bit and how it would work and put together a proposal to come back.
I'd have taken to pull that out, isn't it? I mean, I would think it's something that's.
I think they had more problems with that machine than it was working. It was yeah, I don't think it wasn't very good.
They didn't want to replace it anyway.
Late at last meeting, we had a discussion out in the parking lot about wash fees and wash fees. So, and your conversation that you had was, well, I'll get more business because wash fees is not renting cars anymore. And that is not a true fact. They are still renting cars. They only have one in their fleet. But now they're coming and taking, you know, well, they were by their booth because their booth was still their booth until the end of September. But, you know, so they're going to do like Big John and have a clipboard and pull their car off in front of the terminal like they normally do, and they're going to come in and they're going to rent their vehicle. So what's the discussion on that? Because, I mean, you know, Ava's budget and Worley's have a booth within City Cab, and we pay a fair share of money for that. And, you know, and we get our phone number on the website, so it's Boschke's phone number coming off the website. And what's the process, and what's the procedures for anybody just to come in with a clipboard and say, okay, I'd like your business.
Watchkeep still has the contract, or?
Watchkeep contract ended September 11th or 12th. The last day of the contract. So we've removed them from all marketing sources. We will not do any more advertising for their car rentals. And we do have that agreement that we put, or that the commission put together last year about, the name of it is called right now, but it basically prevents anyone that doesn't have a contract with the airport coming in with such as that, because there is no contract.
Well, I'm wondering how we should address this, because obviously if we left this door open, anybody could come in and be doing anything, you know.
I don't know if it's notifying us, but you're doing such, and then we handle it then.
Well, I know City Cab has talked about getting rid of their booth because you've allowed Big John to come and park his cab right at the front door, and he comes in and solicits people all the time in the past. Now, I don't know if he's still going to be doing that, you know, what his health condition is at the time of COVID and everything, but you have allowed him to do that. So why can't City Cab just pull out and bring their vans up and say, here we are?
Well, like I said, now the airport has that agreement in place for, so they can't come into that. So if there's not a contract in place with the airport, that would prevent them from doing so. And I haven't heard of any reports of the other taxi service coming in
ugly.
I don't work every day, but days I work, I haven't seen it. I don't know if you,
You know, and a lot of times if we don't know about it, you know, if we're not notified, can't do anything about it either, so.
And if a passenger makes a phone call to a local cab company and there's nothing we can do about that, they made that call in. But I agree with you. If they don't have a contract with them, they're soliciting business,
Yeah, coming in and soliciting, that crosses the line.
Well, City Cab and Big John had that issue this summer, I don't know when it was, but if it was August or what, you know, Big John took City Cab's fare and there was a discussion.
And City Council number 7 years for it. So they're going to keep this.
maybe you can contact Joel, just let him know that that happens to him in contact us very well.
Yeah, I agree. Or even if you need a letter from the commission on something, we can do that too.
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's not just you out there.
I mean, obviously, and what Laura's saying, I mean, I don't know the whole situation, but we need to protect our licensure and our revenues.
Right.
If we're charging Joe, we better be charging John.
All right. Any other business come before this commission? If not,
From our side of things, just want to say thanks for the striping. We got new striping out there when we came in to do everything else. Just kudos to SCH and Euland because, you know, watching what they did all summer long, incredible stuff. The place looks so nice. The last job, I couldn't believe it. Out of a couple of weeks, they dug it all, filled it back in, and poured concrete. Wow.
Yeah, I was able to, with Jay Caney, gave me a tour from end to end, and it's the finished product too. It's the way that everything was contoured and seeded. It looks really nice, and like you said, the landscape's changed. Even if you go down 108, where Euland bought some property, and now they've used that as a lay-down yard and storage area to fill, and what KGM's doing at Ewald's over there. I mean, it's changed the landscape of it.
It's going to make your job easier come next summer for mowing.
Absolutely.
Just the way they landscape it, everything, that piece of paper, you guys mowing.
They were very receptive, not only at the issue, they were receptive. We were very, very clear about making this very simple, very, much more complex than it appears, because you're always worried about the wetland impact and it falls itself out.
One final question on the lighting of the taxiway. After it's decommissioned as to the runway, the lighting stays in place?
Correct. Right. And then we're starting off this year with blue lights. Okay. The next year, for the runway will be white lights. And next back. And Christmas.
Wait out of sight, red, you're dead.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I also want to bring it up is that all the exterior area, we're getting complaints that she spent a lot of money to do something that's owned and that's everything. So,
Is it better, Brian, than it was?
well, it's better than it was, but
we
still getting complaints.
Yeah, and we should address that. And frankly, it goes back to the design of the building and all the IT stuff that should have been done.
So what would be the fix?
The only thing I could think of is we put some deadening panels up there. I mean, we did that in the mill, over the shears, remember we put up some of those panels, you know.
Echoing issue.
Yeah,
you know, it's essentially what we have in the third, fourth quarter.
Yep.
I mean, I can't understand anybody's thought.
So that's the complaint that we get.
So those panels.
Those are old people.
The panels in the mill, did that take care of it?
Yeah, well, it helps bend the sound and, you know, stops the echoing.
Well, I mean, if it's that bad, you know, maybe that's something we could look at.
Can we put that on the next month's agenda, or we can get coolers involved?
Yeah.
Bob, you on the phone?
Why is there a sound system in the back room of the rental car? I've asked that before, I don't need a speaker in my back room. I really don't.
I think it goes fire alarm.
Yeah.
Mine does not, they saw, Rick checked and it does not.
I mean, for what we spent to put this together, if it doesn't make sense to have a sound system that works, it's not.
I mean, the last thing I have is electrical, all the generator.
Yeah.
So they will plug their equipment in out there, about that, I talked to the Hanson electric guy, he said it's got stuff in there, it's just a matter of somebody finding that stuff and putting electrical. Because we got two pieces of equipment that, especially in the winter time, if we gotta use them, we gotta keep plugged in, keep the use.
Well, that sounds like something that should be taken care of. I mean, yeah.
Because I thought about it a couple of different times.
I believe it was.
The Hanson electric, I talked to the guy, he said, yeah, I got stuff in right here by the generator, and that's, now with the rapid expansion, we're able to put it right on the concrete over there.
I believe that
If you take
Swap out to see.
Good. Especially with winter coming now, I mean, I can see where that should have been taken care of right away.
And the head bridge goes down, we need that lift, and that has to be plugged in all the time, that area.
Okay, next meeting date. What'd you say, Brian?
October 28th.
It work for everybody?
It is, yeah.
All right.
28th. October 28th, right? I believe
Does that work for you guys?
Yeah. No, let me see here. September
Yep,
28th.
28.
All right, that's the day. Any other business? Motion to adjourn would be in order.
So,
And a motion?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're on.